Because if you put tight guardrails in place, it's maybe RPA with a twist of AI.
If Salesforce bought them, it's because they think they have the tech. Like Salesforce are not going to be putting engineers on this.
You can feed anything you want in the models we have today.
The elephant in the room is we do not have enough energy.
Hello again, and welcome to the Generation AI podcast, episode 15. Calum, you'll be surprised again. I remembered the episode number. On the Generation AI podcast, we talk every week about AI, machine learning, and we bridge the gap between sales and business and the tech world to make it easier for founders and then new people in this industry to understand how AI, machine learning, data, and automation can bring an actual ROI and help you grow your business and basically take advantage of the current hype cycle. Colin, how are you?
Yeah, I'm ready for another week in the world of AI. I mean, I think it's interesting, right? Because there are the companies that we all know about, the OpenAIs of the world, but there are also these startups that are coming out from nowhere, and you're not really sure who's going to win. But I'm pretty sure people will be writing books about the era that we're in now, in the same way they were writing books about the .com era. The difference is we don't know how it's going to end yet, so that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, we're part of the plot here. What are we going to cover today?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot to cover. I think to that point, we're going to cover, first of all, what is happening in the AI startup space, particularly with reference to who's getting acquired. So Salesforce just acquired their latest AI company. So we'll take a look into that and what we think it means for the industry more generally. We'll look at OpenAI's key use cases in the AI space. So you and I are always debating what are the best use cases for AI. How can people actually use it? How can you actually get a return on investment in practical terms? So OpenAI have released their own paper to address those points specifically. We're going to go through that. Deloitte have done a similar thing. They've released their own paper talking about specific AI use cases and how normal companies can actually get value from AI. So we'll look into that as well. And then we'll finish off with a good bit of hysteria in terms of the rumors that are taking place in the AI space this week.
That's good. Let's get going with startups being acquired. I'm curious to see what your topic is about on Salesforce.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously I have a little bit of insight into Salesforce, having previously worked there for about 3 years. And they are a very acquisitive business, right? They acquire a company every couple of months. But typically they've been very successful at doing so, because what happens is Salesforce acquire the technology and then they have these massive distribution channels. They have a huge marketing team. They have literally thousands of salespeople. Like when I was working for Salesforce as a salesperson, I was one of 1,000 salespeople just for the UK. So they acquire these technologies for cheap, and then they put them into their distribution systems. And in this instance, they've acquired a company called Moonhub, who are essentially claiming to be an AI agent company for recruitment. Now, we've heard this term before, and obviously we're very skeptical. But here's why I think this acquisition could be a bit different. I think when you think about AI agents, I think where AI agents do work really well is when you've got very repeatable processes, where essentially it's just somebody sitting there clicking a mouse, maybe the odd text input, but mainly just clicking around different workflows. And actually that's a really poor use of humans' time. And recruitment is a good reference point here. Most recruiters spend all day scrolling through databases, through LinkedIn, trying to find relevant candidates to speak to for particular job roles. So Moonhub is a really interesting company because they've been acquired at a very early stage. I think what's also interesting about this acquisition is it was an acqui-hire. So they'd raised 14 million, but instead of Salesforce buying the company, they instead just essentially acquired all of their employees. And bought out all of their employees as opposed to going through a formal acquisition. So the company raised 14 million, then they get acqui-hired, rather than raising their next round and growing. So why weren't they able to grow? Why did Salesforce? I mean, it's clear why Salesforce acquired them, but why would they sell after raising 14 million? And why sell in a way where you don't even get value on the equity? They're simply hiring your employees. Bit of an odd one, and I wonder whether this reflects where we are in AI development right now.
Just before we dive into Moonhub, I'm just curious how you see this acquisition. Is it really an acquisition, or is it Salesforce rescuing the employees that would have been laid off because Moonhub ran out of runway?
It's a good question, and the answers aren't exactly clear. But I mean, they had a very small team, and they raised 14 million. So it would be hard to imagine that they ran out of cash within that time. Maybe they're struggling with product market fit. I think what a lot of founders do, frankly, is build a product and expect people to come, right? But a lot of the time, the distribution is an afterthought. And actually, the way that we talk about building companies, we're putting distribution before the product, because unless you have a low-cost, scalable distribution channel, there's no way of you scaling your business without raising VC money. Now, these guys, they raised VC money and they still sold out at a really early stage. So it's similar to the story that we're seeing a few weeks ago from 11x, right? So 11x were this amazing new company that were building AI SDR technology. And it turned out that they'd actually, overestimated or overstated the amount of customers they had, the amount of customers that were using the technology, and it turned out that when you dug into the detail, their churn rate was very, very high, and they couldn't actually deliver on the promises they were making. Maybe Moonhub is a similar story, where the reason why these founders have had to get out so early is because their technology can't deliver on the story they're selling.
And do you think Salesforce came in to complement their skills? So they built the deep tech tool, but didn't have the expertise to scale it, and Salesforce came in to help them go to market faster?
Does not have the technical expertise either. That's for sure. If Salesforce bought them, it's because they think they have the tech. Like Salesforce are not going to be putting engineers on this. Salesforce is just going to be purely putting it into their distribution channel. So Salesforce must think that the underlying tech is workable, or it's a bet worth taking. But I'm more interested in why the founders sold. And I think why the founders sold is that maybe they were struggling to deliver on the vision that they have here from a technical perspective.
But back to the technical perspective. So on their page, it says that Moonhub helps you scale faster with AI agents. And the tagline is, Moonhub's AI recruiter accelerates your roadmap by helping source, vet, and employ top talent for leading organizations. I feel like I've seen this pitch a few times in the last few months when it comes to AI agents in the recruiting space. To your point on AI agents being a good fit, where you have repeating procedures or processes that are conducted by people. So recruiting is kind of the same thing, right? You get a request, need to find the right people, need to vet them, need to figure out if they're available, if they match the criteria. Then you have to interview them for a fit. Then you might have a few interviews on the technical side to make sure they're really good for the role. This is very standardized, and I think we've seen with Mercor and different companies similar tools where AI agents automate parts of this process, especially the interviews, because it's very hit or miss sometimes. So if you can replace people's time with AI agents, call them however you want, models, digital humans, to conduct the interview and do it in a way that makes sense for the candidate, it's not just a waste of time. If you can do this pipeline end to end, I think you're going to win. And Mercor seems to be doing a good job in this space. Curious why Moonhub couldn't pull it off.
I mean, 99% of the time it's going to come down to execution, right? I just think that at the end of the day, like, I now work for Deal, working for a payroll company, and there's an amazing stat that the cost of employing people, or the cost of salaries, is on average 65% of employees' costs, or of a business's costs. Massive, absolutely massive, and therefore your ability to attract and retain talent is a strategically important thing. So I am really interested to see how this plays out. I think the early mover in the kind of AI space in terms of use cases was obviously coding agents. I think recruitment is going to be following fast behind it.
I agree. And in order to, let's say, stop the debate on what's the use case is going to win in AI or what kind of use cases are around, and also to dismantle the belief that Gen AI is just language models and maybe it's just chatbots in one flavor or the other. Switching to the second topic, OpenAI put out a list of use cases curated by them with examples to show what's possible within the new Gen AI wave. There's 6 things. I'm going to go through them really quick, and then we're going to dive deep into a few of them. We have content creation. This is obvious. You get images and content easily generated by language models. You have research, and we've seen deep research doing a great job doing stuff on your behalf. We have coding, data analysis, ideation, strategy, and automation. I think we've covered some of them in the past. For sure, we've covered coding with tools like Bolt, Lovable, Cursor, and all these kind of things. We have covered content creation in the context of ad agencies being replaced or the cost of creating ads and marketing content going down significantly. And deep research, personally, I'm using deep research every week to come up with relevant topics for the podcast. It's saving quite a lot of time for me, and I'm sure it can save time over academia, business, and any other domain that requires people to do some in-depth research on a specific topic. What's your take on this 6 use cases? And which one is your favorite, by the way?
I think so automation's been around for a while, right? Like automation is not a new thing. We had RPA, robotic process automation, that was going to be this big wave. Turned out not really to be honest. Like if you want to know how automation went for RPA, just look at the UiPath share price over the last 5 years. Not great. So obviously, I think the problem with automation is that unless that automation understands context and nuance rather than just a predefined rule-based decision making, I think the failure rate is so high that it's not scalable. And if the processes are so obvious that you can automate them in the same way every time, is the automation itself that valuable to begin with, right? Because eventually that just becomes a commoditized service because it's essentially just the same thing every time and everyone can do it. So yeah, automation to me is not that interesting. But what is way more interesting, and to me, is the idea of intelligent automation.
Mm-hmm.
Like research is cool, but like again, where is the economic value? And there's probably a ton of economic value in research, but only for a certain amount of businesses. When I think about business opportunities, I'm thinking about total addressable market and the economic impact that you make by delivering that use case to the business, to the industry, or whatever. And I think by far and away, the biggest opportunity here is intelligent automation and actually creating automations that are context aware in real time. I think that's incredibly useful because I think today, automation may be done by Python, but 99% of intelligent automation is still done by humans.
I agree with you. And I looking at those 6 use cases, I think automation, I wouldn't put it as one separate use case. I would view it more as a mix of all the other use cases, because in order to have intelligent automation, you need that agent, or however you call it, to do some research, to understand the problem, Then it needs to do ideation and strategy to solve the problem. Then it might need to analyze some data, write some code, and create some content to achieve the outcome it's been asked to do. So I see automation as a mix of everything. And maybe the mix of everything, as you said it, is intelligent automation. And back to the topic of AI agents, people are throwing with this word left and right. I feel like in order for an agent to be actually intelligent, it needs to have autonomy. Because if you put tight guardrails in place, it's maybe RPA with a twist of AI. But if you let it, and if you let it do whatever it wants to do, if you give it autonomy, in my opinion, that's the point where we talk about AI agents and intelligent agents that do things by themselves, take decisions by themselves, identify problems, and solve them without even having to ask for a specific problem to be solved.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's worth just explaining for the audience as well. What is, technically speaking, what is the difference between the kind of robotic process automation era of companies like UiPath and Blue Prism even, who I actually met when I worked for Salesforce? They were an interesting company. But what is the technical difference between robotic process automation and large language-based automation?
I would say one has a very strict set of rules, and the rules never change and the context never changes. So one common use case of RPA is click on this email, copy the content, put the content somewhere, count some keywords, and do something with that.
So it's purely rule-based, is that?
Rule-based and very, very tight guardrails. The context almost never changes within the same use case. With AI or with intelligent automation, you don't have to set the rules. You just have to specify the outcome and maybe some context. And ideally, the agent, if it's AI enough, should figure out how to solve the problem, come up with a solution, and deliver the outcome you're expecting it to deliver. So it's more outcome. So just to summarize this in a few words, RPA is rule-based, AI agents and AI automation is more outcome-based, in my opinion.
It reminds me, and I know we probably need to move on to the next topic, but it reminds me of that TED Talk that we watched with Eric Schmidt a couple of weeks ago. And he gave the example of the AlphaGo, whereby it was a tool designed to essentially beat the world's best Go players. And Go is a game that's famous for having tens of thousands of potential different moves and combinations, essentially just a way more sophisticated version of chess. And the AlphaGo was able to come up with moves that didn't previously exist, and no human had ever attempted to make those moves before. And yet AlphaGo was trained to maintain a certain win percentage, and that was the outcome, and it found a way to get to the outcome. It seems like that technology, that level of sophistication, that level of AI, it seems like we don't have that level of sophistication available in production today for the average company. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say that's fair.
And what needs to change, or what progress do we need to be made? What are the limitations? Are they technical? What stops us from being able to take that technology like AlphaGo and actually put that into production in a company today? Why is that technology not accessible to everyone?
I wouldn't say it's not accessible. People and companies are building bits and pieces in this direction. We've played ourselves with those agentic AI tools, with relevance AI, crew AI, all these kind of things. I think it's starting to become more and more accessible. So I wouldn't agree with the fact that it's not accessible. Deep research, it is accessible, of course. Once you pay a monthly subscription to OpenAI, you do have access to it. Different language model providers have the same research capabilities. So I would say it's becoming more and more accessible, this kind of outcome-based intelligence and not just rule-based process automation.
If I think about the economics involved, it seems to me like the reason why AlphaGo can build the world's best Go machine in a very narrow use case is because it's actually incredibly expensive and time consuming to create an AI system that is better than any human being at one thing.
At one thing, that's a very
At one
important observation.
at one thing. And we haven't yet built a horizontal platform where you can train a model to be as good at one thing as AlphaGo is at Go. We're still not there yet. We don't have fully accessible super intelligence.
So you're talking about the jack of all trades, master of all kind of situation.
Well, at least a platform where a jack of all trades can access the platform to build a master of one, if that makes sense.
It doesn't. I think we're going there with MCP. So MCP is basically the layer for linking all these kind of things. And then I think we're going to see more and more advancements. I mean, we're seeing, right? Every week we're seeing a new thing being built. SDR agents, recruitment agents. Some of them fail, some of them work. But I think people are making huge progress in this direction.
To be blunt, though, when you compare that to the capabilities of AlphaGo, does the agents that we see today, they feel to me more like fancy versions of RPA as opposed to AlphaGo for recruitment?
There's also two different paradigms for training those agents, those systems, if you want. Let's not overuse the word agents. AlphaGo, as far as I'm concerned, has been trained with reinforcement learning. Language models have a slightly different way of being trained, even though reinforcement learning might be part of the process, but they have a fundamentally different way of being reinforced to create content. And that system was probably built specifically for Go, maybe designed to play in Go. And what you're trying to say now is, how can we take a generic system, language model, visual language model, you name it, and ask it to do one thing and do it well without being specifically reinforced from the beginning to do that one thing. I think this is intelligence, right? Taking a generic thing and ask it to become flexible enough to understand new things without being reinforced on them in the first place.
Exactly. See, this is why we bring you on and get that engineering perspective.
Cool. Next topic. A similar study was put out by Deloitte. We're not going to go again through use cases, but we're going to go through other 6 things that are very relevant in the Gen AI space. And those 6 things are modalities. I think we talked 1 or 2 weeks ago about how audio is going to become the modality of the future. For those of you who are not technical, modalities are basically types of inputs you can fed to an AI model, and you will expect that AI model is able to reason based on those materials. So those 6 modalities are text, code, audio, image, video, and 3D models. Pretty much, I think those 6 modalities cover all the modalities, or most of the modalities we interact with as humans. I think a 7th one would be sensory and kind of feeling, if you want, but that's a different discussion to be had in the AGI context. For you as a non-technical person, what do you make of this? What does this mean to you? And when you see like those are the 6 top modalities, what are you thinking of building next?
I mean, I will throw this back to you quite quickly because I'm keen to hear more from you on this topic. But I think for me, we're building an AI agency, right? So we're always thinking about what use cases can we build? How do we get ROI for our clients? How can we translate technology into value and ultimately into revenue and cost savings? And so for me, like these modalities are interesting, but the way more interesting thing for me as an agency founder is how can we use these modalities together to create an end-to-end use case? So, for instance, audio is super cool. I don't think anybody's going to be working in a contact center in 10 years. I'm absolutely convinced that an AI LLM audio enabled will do a much better job of answering your queries in 5 years time, let alone 10 years time. But the really interesting thing to me is, okay, fine, you've replaced the contact center agent to have the phone conversation, but how about all of the other workflows that the contact center agent then needs to do? So for me, it's less about modalities and more about what modalities do you combine and when. So if I was to pick one area that I'm super interested in right now and super bullish on, it would be intelligent automation combined with audio. Because if you're just solving for audio, you're not really solving the problem. Great, your AI can now have a conversation with somebody, but it's not an end-to-end workflow. And you'd still need a human being on the other end to actually update the system, send out new stock, raise the ticket, etc., etc. So yeah, the modalities are in combination is what gets my attention.
But
Over to you.
let's imagine you are a typical client wanting to build an AI automation and is concerned about audio. I think the simple answer here is that audio can easily become text and text can easily become audio. So would this answer your question? So let's say you want to build automations with audio. Does this bit of information make it easier for you?
No, because we're not necessarily talking about text or audio, right? What we're talking about is then completing a series of tasks that are the result of that interaction.
I see.
Right? So
it's more around the understanding of the context and not just here's the text, give me text back, or here's the image, tell me what's happening inside. It's more like grasping the context and figuring out, okay, I had a call with this client. What's the next best action to take?
And then taking that action. So let's use a simple example, right? Let's say you call up because your phone has been delivered to the wrong house. Okay? So it's great that you can have an audio-based conversation where the individual concerned is able to communicate with the large language model either through text or audio in half the time, and they don't have to wait on hold because now the LLM is able to take thousands of calls per second or whatever, and so there's no hold. It's a much better customer experience. I get a resolution quicker. And that's great. It's great for me. I get a better experience. It's great for the company because they have a lower cost to serve. However, as a result of that conversation, my address still needs to be changed in the system. A new order still needs to go out to me. You still need to communicate with the courier and the logistics company to make sure that it can get there on time within a certain time frame. So, if you purely just automated the audio without thinking about all of the related tasks and the related workflows, you wouldn't really. I mean, it would be nice. What you would be doing would be a nice experience, but it wouldn't really be solving the fundamental issue, which is that a human being sitting there talking, clicking, and typing is a bad use of their time. If you just do audio, you just simply remove the talking bit. They're still doing the clicking and the typing.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I think what listeners should make out of this conversation on modalities is that you can feed anything you want in the models we have today. But what you're trying to achieve ultimately is find a way to understand context and to understand what the next action is and teach the model or prompt the model to do it. And I think we'll see this with MCP, with all the connections, that models will be capable of many more things just because they have access to all these tools. So to your point, the model will understand that, hey, the phone was delivered to the wrong place. With the advancements in AI we see nowadays, you'll be able to redirect it, create a new order, figure out the problem, and find a solution without any human involvement.
I'm keen to throw this topic over to you. So, firstly, what do you think about all of these modalities? How do you see it working moving forwards? And then, but also a more specific question in terms of that example that we just gave, where you're not just automating the audio conversation, or you're not just enabling the audio conversation via an LLM, but you're building the LLM for audio and then automating the end-to-end workflow. Is the technology available for that today? Like, are we now at a point where that is possible? It's possible to do that at scale.
Not as a jack of all trades, master of all, but you can automate bits and pieces with custom software. It might, so if you just take a generic model and ask it what you've just asked me, it's unlikely it'll be capable of completing the whole end-to-end problem to solution roadmap. But if you combine bits and pieces, I'm sure it's close to being capable of completing the whole cycle. And to quickly answer your question, then we'll move on to the next topic. What's my take on these modalities? It's interesting to see how the whole Gen AI bubble shifts and moves towards human intelligence. Because I remember many years ago, I think 7 or 8 years, I was using the most basic models for text to extract named entities, as in verbs, subjects from sentences. I was using very simple image models to segment images and figure out where people are and what actions they're doing. I was using very specialized models for different modalities. And I like how everything converges into one place. Now we have this Gen AI multimodality models capable of understanding text, audio, code, image, video, and 3D all in one go and reason based on all those modalities. So I like how multiple specialized components are now converging to a, let's say, more generic form of artificial intelligence.
So multiple disciplines coming together now.
Exactly.
In a way that wasn't the case before.
Exactly. And that's why I'm saying it's going towards human intelligence, because this is what you see with humans, right? They start to learn how to do things in isolation, and then they figure out a way to combine multiple skills into one.
Yeah.
Talking about modalities, we'll be short on this topic. We talked about how OpenAI partnered or acquired John Ives' company a few days or weeks ago. And now there's rumors on how they're creating a screenless gadget. And the rumors go in the direction of this gadget being a simple, I don't even know how to call it, a small object with a camera, with a microphone, maybe being capable of understanding your environment. I think in one picture they put out, this gadget is together with your laptop and your phone on the table, and is being able of understanding the context around you and what's happening, and kind of understanding it as a seventh modality, kind of the sense modality. Where is this going? Would you use this kind of tool? Would you have your AI companion 24/7 with you just so you can understand what you're doing and help you out?
Well, we've had a lot from you in this podcast. So what's your thought process around this?
I think it's important to have kind of a 24/7 companion if we're going full AI. So I would use this kind of permanent companion with me, just because it'll be able to tell me what's been going on I didn't see, what happened around me I wasn't aware of. If I forget something, I would have this companion remind me. So I'm a tech guy. I'm very in favor of gadgets. I would love to have this kind of AI tool always by my side. Kind of a personal assistant, but always with you. So I'm very keen to see what. Right now we just have rumors. I'm very keen to see what they will actually launch, how it will look, because we've seen like glasses, the Meta glasses. Yeah, I think that's a gadget not all the people want to wear. Not everybody wants to wear bulky glasses just so they can fit a camera in them and understand the environment. But maybe there's a different way. Maybe there's a mental shift on how we visualize and use this kind of hardware companions that are always with you. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in this space. For now, we just have rumors and big promises.
We do not have enough energy. Like, there's no way on planet Earth, like you would have for even 1 billion people to use this every day, for this thing to be sucking in data 24/7 on a billion people, you would need to like 100x our energy throughput through our grids. I mean, that's the big, and this is why Google and Amazon are investing in nuclear. This is where we're coming to. So it's interesting because we still haven't seen where are the true bottlenecks in AI. You know, is it at the energy layer? Is it at the chip layer? Is it at the app layer? We still don't know yet. And I still think the use cases we're talking about here in terms of AI hardware, like this is minimum 5 years away, in my view.
I agree. Unless we end up each having a data center in our bedroom, I think this will be such a sucker for energy. And we'll cover this in the next podcast. Actually, in the US, there's a big thing happening called the Stargate project. And I think they already started.
In your bedroom?
What's that?
Are you building a data center in your bedroom? Is that what's happening?
Maybe. We'll find out one day. I'm a tech guy, I told you. They're building this thing in the US, like a massive project for data centers, basically a GPU powerhouse somewhere in Texas to serve the increasing demand in this kind of intelligence. But we'll cover this in future episodes. Looking forward to more real news, not just rumors. And maybe I'll tell you about my data center in my bedroom.
We'll wrap it up there. You better be building that data center. That's all I can say. It sounds like we're going to need it. But we'll be back the same time next week with another episode of the Generation AI podcast. For now, thanks for tuning in, and see you next week.